you have a granddad, a father. Now imagine there's no pension fund, no benefits, no social safety net. There's only you, your family, and one sack of grain for the whole winter. And your old man, he can't work anymore. He doesn't bring in anything. He just eats. Your food, your kids' food. Here's the question. When there's enough food left for two, and there are 3 of you in the house, who do you stop feeding first? Think that's insane? That was reality in the Roman Empire. And now I'll tell you how civilized Romans solved this problem, and why by the end, you'll realize that in their place, you would have done the exact same thing. Even today, winter can bring a lot of trouble. Back then, cold wasn't snow outside the window. It was hunger and disease. Roads frozen solid like stone, paralyzing trade and the movement of armies. A constant fight for survival. But few know that in Rome, there was a segment of people who saw nothing terrible in winter, while others starved and died. 2 different worlds living at the same time, almost never touching. World 1. Rome for the rich, an oasis in an icy desert. Picture a senator's villa. Outside, a blizzard howls, snow lashes thick window panes. Inside, you're walking barefoot across smooth marble, and it's warm. How? Magic? A secret volcanic spring under the house? What's going on? The answer was simpler and more brilliant. It was literally under their feet. Rome's cheat code against cold, a technology that feels like sci-fi even today. It wasn't just heated floors. It was an entire underfloor world turned into a hellish boiler room. In the basement, in darkness and smoke, an army of slaves, round the clock, without sleep or rest, shoveled tons of wood into a giant furnace. Hot air and smoke didn't pour into your room. No. They flowed like rivers of fire through channels beneath the floor, turning every inch of marble into a hot radiator. Then that heat rose through flues in the walls, warming the entire house. A private underworld beneath your feet that created paradise above. It worked so well that in the vast halls of palaces and in Rome's famous bath complexes, the thermae where thousands packed in, it was always warm and crucially dry. No mold. While barbarian kings in Britain and Germania huddled in smoky wooden huts around a hearth, a Roman senator walked barefoot on hot marble. They even built heliocameni sun hearths, essentially the first greenhouses. Huge mica windows let in winter sun and trapped heat, letting them grow citrus and exotic flowers while a blizzard raged outside. Peak flex, a demonstration of total dominance over nature. But this paradise had a price, and it wasn't measured in money. It was measured in lives. Lives of people who lived a couple hundred meters from those warm marble walls, yet as if on another planet. Let's push open the villa's heavy oak door. Take one step outside. From steam and citrus scent into real life. World 2. Rome for the poor. The daily fight for warmth. What about everyone else? The huge crowd, from retired legionary to simple cobbler. They didn't have heated floors. Their world was a world of constant cold. Remember your apartment block in October, when it's freezing out and the heat isn't on yet? Now triple it, because you live in an insula, a Roman tenement hive. But it's not poured in concrete. It's built out of sticks and dung. Gaps in the walls so wide the icy wind tours your room like it owns the place. Ice on the floor. Your only defense against freezing to death is a small clay brazier. And here comes the real horror. That brazier is both your god and your devil. It gives you about as much heat as a single match in a frozen field. In exchange for that miserable glow, it forces a daily survival gamble. Risk 1. Burn alive. One careless move, one spark on the dry rush mat that's your bed, and your crap shack goes up like a match. Winter tenement fires were routine. Whole blocks burned to the ground. Risk 2. Suffocate in your sleep. Carbon monoxide. Silent, invisible killer. Open a window to air out. You freeze. Close it, and you may not wake up. Every winter, families were found dead in their cold rooms. It wasn't life. It was roulette. Every night you went to bed not knowing what would kill you first: cold, fire, or fumes. Okay, there's no heating. You live in an icy crypt where the wind roams the room. The brazier is Russian roulette. How do you even make it till morning? A poor man had only 2 weapons. What's on him, and what's in him? Forget the light picture book togas. The winter toga wasn't clothing. It was a sleeping bag you wore all day. A huge, heavy, stinking woolen mass you didn't put on. You wrapped yourself in it like a mummy. Air trapped between layers became your only insulation. Over that, a waxed hide cloak that blocked wind and wet snow. Yeah, you looked like a sack of potatoes. Hard to move. Didn't matter. In the Empire's north, there was only one fashion: don't die. Imagine you only wear shorts. Pants are for uneducated yokels. But in winter, the posturing ends. You'll wear anything. Rome was the same. For a proper Roman, trousers were shameful clothes of barbarians and savages. Wearing them was embarrassing. Then our proudly pantsless legionary, full of patriotism and fashion prejudice, gets posted to the German frontier. 9 months a year of snow and a wind that saws through bone. He learns fast. The choice is simple. Either you're a barbarian in warm wool trousers, or you're a frozen Roman in shorts. But clothes don't warm you by themselves. They need fire. And that fire burned inside. Winter food wasn't about taste. It was about crafting consumables for survival. Your body is like a smartphone in the cold. It bleeds charge constantly. You have to feed it. Your main food is pulza hot, thick barley paste. That's your charge. You shovel it in, and it releases energy slowly for hours, keeping your bar from redlining. Land a strip of dried meat? That's treasure. Scoring a chunk of lard? Not a jackpot, a relic. Your personal reactor for the next 24 hours. One bite, and your meter slams back to full. All washed down with hot spiced wine. The ancient Roman mulled wine. A shabby illusion of warmth while you wait for dawn in your icy hell. This wasn't life. It was daily resource management. Survival math, with your life as the price of error. So what about the old? Did they really drive them into snowdrifts like cattle? Here's the raw truth. In a world where every calorie counts, an old man who can't work anymore stops being father or granddad. He becomes a problem, an extra mouth. When resources run out, pragmatic Romans asked a simple, terrible question. Is this old man's life worth the piece of bread that could go to a young worker or a healthy child? The answer led to one of the darkest pages in their history. And understand this, it wasn't some faceless state decree, turn in your elders for disposal. No, far worse. It was a personal choice laid on the shoulders of adult children. On the Tiber, right in Rome's heart, there was an island, the island of Aesculapius, god of healing, a place for offerings and hope. According to one of Rome's bleakest legends, that's where they took those they'd lost hope of curing. Hopelessly sick slaves and frail elders. They weren't killed, not drowned, just left. Picture it. An old man who worked his whole life for family and state is ferried to that island and abandoned. Alone. No food, no fire. Left to illness and the river's cutting cold. Imagine you're a simple Roman craftsman, Gaius. A wife, 3 small kids, and an old father who can't hold a hammer anymore. Winter. Grain prices have tripled. The pitiful flatbread you divide among 5 no longer stretches. Your youngest coughs all the time. Your wife looks at you silently, but in her eyes you see everything. Fear, despair, the mute question, what will you do? Your father sits against a cold wall. He understands. He sees his grandchildren eyeing his piece of bread. One evening he tells you himself, "Son, take me to the island." What the hell do you do? It's not a choice between good and evil. It's a choice between your whole family's slow execution by hunger and one fast, monstrous sacrifice. You're choosing between your father's death and your children's deaths. Whichever you choose, you'll carry it forever. But what about law? The state? Did no one care? You ask. The answer, yes. Almost no one. To understand why, you need one concept: pater familias. In Roman law, the head of household held near absolute power over his family. He could sell his children into slavery, marry them off to anyone, even, at least in theory, execute them. That meant anything inside the family was the family's problem. The state didn't step in. An old father wasn't a pensioner citizen. He was your responsibility or property, in brutal terms. Feed him good for you. Can't feed him? Not the state's problem. Yours. There were no pensions, no nursing homes, only your conscience and a brutal reality. The state silently granted you the right to make that awful choice because it was simpler. The strong survive. The weak don't burden the treasury. There was another reason, cold as ice on the Danube: economics. Rome was drowning in cheap labor. Endless wars meant a steady stream of slaves. Why spend scarce resources on your old, sick father if, for the same money, you can buy a young, strong Gaul who will work 15 hours a day and bring income? You already know the answer. Back to the main question. Did Romans abandon their elders to die? Yes, but they didn't do it like savages. They did it like sorry, efficient managers. They didn't shove him into the snowy woods with shouting. Why? Impractical. Bad for the family's reputation with neighbors. They just optimized. Two things decided it: assets and liabilities. If you were a rich old man, you were an asset. Your connections, money, influence worked for the family. You were warmed, fed, respected. If you were poor and sick, unable to work, you became a liability, a line item in the family budget, and that line had to go. It was done quietly, civilized, without fuss. And history, if you scratch it, is business built on bones like this. Want to know how else the efficient managers of the past solved problems? Subscribe. Here we rip all the veils off.